Potential links between the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the origin of the COVID-19 pandemic. That is a report released by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence on Friday. Good morning. It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY. Springfield's News and Talk, and we've been waiting for this. If you recall, the origins of COVID-19 was something that even early on, people said, okay, it's looks like it's weaponized, and there's a virology institute in Wuhan, China, close to the epicenter where they say this thing came from. But that idea, the debate around that, was shielded from social media companies, if you recall. Facebook censored that. Twitter censored that. You even had months after the fact, when these things were being suppressed, the conversation about where COVID-19 originated from. You had Facebook do a complete about-face all of a sudden and say, oh, we are now allowing that to be debated on the platform. So it goes to show just how censorship is implemented, reduces the availability of that debate, and then all of a sudden comes out, oh, we'll actually go ahead and, allow you to talk about this now in a country where we have a First Amendment right to, speak about things and to hear opposition viewpoints and so on. But let's get into this because it's only 10 pages long. And this was after you had a measure passed by Congress forcing this to be released. So again, 10 pages long. It still has some redactions despite Congress saying declassify this information. And the overview is you got the intelligence community assessment of the COVID-19 origins, the Wuhan Institute of Virology activities performed with or on behalf of the People's Liberation Army of China, coronavirus research and related activities performed at the Wuhan Institute of Virology with research and holdings, engineering capabilities, and concerns at the Wuhan Institute of Virology biosafety arena. You also had researchers who fell ill in the fall of 2019. That's interesting. And then a bunch of definitions. So let's just go through this and read some of it because, listen, the COVID-19 and the government's reaction to it, and I think that that's important here. It wasn't just COVID-19 and the health concerns. It was the government's reaction to it, shutting down businesses. Even here in Illinois, we had, big box stores like Walmart could stay open, but the small mom and pop shoe stores couldn't. The government's reaction to COVID, shutting down business, devastated the economy, right? 2019, at the tail end, I was thinking, holy cow, the economy's on fire. We're kicking butt, heading into an election year. What's going to happen? Then January, all the hubbub around, there's this virus over in China, concerns it could get over and spread across the world. And then by March, we were in a lockdown. And that lasted for more than 2 months in Illinois. And then you had the economic conditions really not eased up at all for months after that, where the governor would say, you've got a, certain amount that your county says you have of COVID-19. You can only have 20% capacity in your restaurant. You can only have 50% capacity in your restaurant. So he kept tweaking this dial for months and months and months, let alone the education outcomes of keeping kids from going to school, let alone the vaccine mandates that were implemented. So COVID-19 did and the government's reaction to it did a massive, massive amount of damage to the economy, to education, and including people's psyche. So all of the debate, all of the division, you got COVIDiots on one side, branch COVIDians on another side, and a whole host of just spirited debates and wrecking of relationships, no question. But back to this document here, and we'll go through it in some detail. The executive summary, always good to read those. The report responds to the COVID-19 Origins Act of 2023, which called for the U.S. intelligence community to declassify information related to potential links between the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the origin of the COVID-19 pandemic. This report outlines the intelligence community's understanding of the Wuhan Institute of Virology, its capabilities, and the action of its personnel leading up to and in the early days of COVID-19. This report does not address the merits of the two most likely pandemic origin hypotheses, nor does it explore other biological facilities in Wuhan other than the Wuhan Institute of Virology. A classified annex to this report includes information that was necessary to exclude from the unclassified portion of this report in order to protect sources and methods, but the information contained in the annex is consistent with the unclassified assessments contained in this report. This report was drafted by the National Intelligence Officer for Weapons of Mass Destruction and Proliferation and coordinated with the intelligence community. That's fascinating. So they had their weapons of mass destruction guy write up this report, and it includes information that's from an annex of classified information when you have this ultimate law that was passed, the COVID-19 Origins Act of 2023, saying that it had to release all of this classified information. But as you can see, things redacted, things left out of the report. But what is the intelligence community's assessment of COVID-19 origins? Going through the report, says the National Intelligence Council and 4 other intelligence community agencies assess that the initial human infections with SARS-CoV-2 most likely was caused by natural exposure to an infected animal that carried SARS-CoV-2 or close progenitor. There you go. It's only 6:45 in the morning. Give me a break. A virus that probably would be more than 99% similar to COVID-19. So it came from, a pangolin? It came from a bat? Where did it came from? What? If you're going to say it came from an animal, don't you think you should really be able to explicitly explain what animal this came from? Goes on to say the Department of Energy and the Federal Bureau of Investigation assessed that the laboratory-associated incident was the most likely cause of the first human infection with SARS-CoV-2, although for different reasons. So you've got 2 of the federal agencies, the Department of Energy and the FBI, saying that the laboratory-associated incident, an incident, not an accident, not a leak, not a, what's another term they use for it, release. No, an incident was the most likely cause. All right, so you got 2 of the intelligence agencies essentially saying that it was a laboratory-associated incident. The Central Intelligence Agency and another agency remain unable to determine the precise origin of COVID-19, as both hypotheses rely on significant assumptions or face challenges with conflicting reporting. So, the Central Intelligence Agency, supposed to have all this vast information at their fingertips, they can't determine the outcome or the origins of COVID-19. That's rather fascinating. And again, going back to the document, almost all intelligence community agencies assess that SARS-CoV-2 was not genetically engineered. Most agencies assess that SARS-CoV-2 was not laboratory adopted. Some are unable to make a determine. All intelligence agencies assess that SARS-CoV-2 was not developed as a biological weapon. So that's the report they released late Friday. It wasn't a biological weapon, they determined. However, the intelligence community is mixed as to whether it came from the lab in Wuhan or if it came from a pangolin or a bat. I don't know. They're not clear about that. But this is causing some concern. You've got the House Intelligence Committee wanting more declassification, saying what they released on Friday is not sufficient. Mike Turner, a representative from Ohio, he wants more information. He says that the report's not sufficient and, quote, this is going to set up a battle between Congress and the Director of National Intelligence to make certain that the law passed unanimously by both the Senate and the House and signed by the president is complied with, but also the American public could get the answers they deserve. So they go on to really push for having even more information about the origins of COVID-19 being released instead of just a little overview of where all the various intelligence community lands on this. But going back to the report here, you've got headlines of coronavirus research and related related activities performed at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Talks about how Wuhan Institute of Virology collected animal samples in 2019. Some researchers analyzed pangolin samples to better understand the disease outbreaks in the animals. By the end of 2019, Wuhan Institute of Virology maintained distinct teams focused on MERS and SARS-related coronaviruses. Then you get even further down, genetic engineering capabilities, talks about how they assessed the scientists at the Wuhan Institute of Virology and their capabilities of doing genetic engineering. You've also got biosafety concerns that were raised with a whole host of concerns there as they were dealing with these very highly infectious viruses. You got to think that that's a big problem. But then it goes into Wuhan Institute of Virology researchers who fell ill in 2019. This is what's really fascinating because I go back to what Jon Stewart had to say. The joke he had on, what was it, the Colbert's show, late night. I can't remember what late night show that was. But Jon Stewart, the comedian, he's like, listen, this came from the lab in Wuhan. It's like if you all of a sudden, there's a chocolate factory right next to a river and you see a whole bunch of chocolate in the river. You're not going to say, oh, that chocolate came naturally. No, you're going to point to the chocolate factory to say, look, there was some chocolate that leaked into the river. So it's pretty remarkable to really kind of, see where you've got, information of researchers being sickened in the fall of 2019 with symptoms similar to, but they say it wasn't COVID-19. One researcher may have been hospitalized in the time frame for a non-respiratory medical condition, but it goes on to spell all that out. It's 10 pages, and 4 of the pages are definitions. All right, so we need a lot more information than just a 10-page document, especially if we're going to delve into the origins of COVID-19 and the government's response to it. But maybe we'll get a little bit more as a House committee is looking to get the author of the paper that was meant to disprove a lab leak theory to testify. Dr. Christian Anderson wrote this Proximal Origins of SARS-CoV-2, which spelled out the assessment they made that it was naturally occurring, and that was something that ultimately has been blown out of the water with now 2 of the intelligence community saying that it came from the lab. And you've got Congress wanting to actually delve even deeper into all of this and this paper, who helped direct the paper, who funded the paper, and why was that paper put out in the time frame that it was put out. So a lot more to come on the origins of COVID-19 after Friday's release of a classified document. We'll see what happens.